This story begins with Will Surfert, a young man born without a single drop of magic in a world obsessed with it. Because of this, he becomes the perfect bullying target at the Magic Academy, not just from talented students like Cyan Ulster, but also from his own professor. Even his teacher joins in on the bullying. It's seriously messed up. Luckily, he has Colette, a good friend who always supports him. Will endures all of this for one dream: to become a Magiavander, the strongest sorcerer protector of the world, to fulfill a childhood promise to his friend Elfaria. The Magiavander is the title for the 5 strongest sorcerers who created a celestial barrier to protect the world from space invaders. Long ago, Will and Elfaria promised to achieve that title together. But now, the genius Elfaria has already become the world's youngest Magiavander, while Will is still struggling alone. To survive at the Academy, Will relies on credits from hunting monsters in the dungeons. A kind teacher, Professor Werkner, gives him a tip about a monster that could earn him the credits he needs. Unfortunately, Cyan overhears this and intends to steal the kill to get Will expelled. However, Cyan's cunning plan backfires. He instead comes face to face with the far stronger evil sentinel monster, and his life is now on the line. That's what you call instant karma. Hearing Cyan's screams, Will arrives on the scene. He hesitates for a moment. Why save the person who always torments him? But remembering Elfaria's words about being a good person, Will steps forward, parrying the monster's attack. Without magic, Will fights his own way. Relying on his superhuman observation and physical toughness, he reads the monster's every move, avoids its deadly attacks, then finds an opening and cuts off its arm. Using the monster's own greatsword, Will delivers the final slash. Cyan is saved, but his face is full of shame and resentment, not gratitude. There's always a character like this, isn't there? But Will doesn't care. What matters is that the 10 credits are secured and his struggle can continue. 5 years ago, the headmaster let Will stay at the academy because of his exceptional sword talent. Will runs into Cyan in the hallway. Cyan immediately confronts and bullies him. This guy just doesn't learn. Behind the scenes, Professor Edward, who also despises Will, pressures the headmaster. The headmaster considers Will a model student and is reluctant to expel him. Finally, Edward is given permission to test Will personally. If Will fails, he will be expelled. While Will is studying with Colette in the library, Professor Edward approaches him and summons him to the Magic Realization Hall. Under the guise of a remedial class, Edward challenges Will in the Magic Hall. The rule is simple. Will only needs to land a single hit on him. But his opponent is a former top candidate for Magiavander. Edward immediately shows his level, attacking Will with layered spells and an impenetrable shield. Without his trusted sword, Will is constantly pushed back. Edward keeps attacking Will with a barrage of spells. Edward walks toward Will, telling him to throw away his dreams. Will stands up and tells Edward that he won't give up because he wants to be with Elfaria, the girl he loves. Seeing the situation worsen, Colette arrives, bringing Will's sword. The moment he holds his sword, Will changes completely. He starts slashing through Edward's magic, charging forward through the barrage of attacks to find an opening. With a high jump, he uses the ceiling as a foothold, breaks through Edward's shield, and manages to land a scratch. The fight is over. Professor Edward is forced to acknowledge his skill and reluctantly gives him 5 credits. One day, while working his newspaper delivery job, Will reads about a new mission issued by Elfaria to collect Frostwalker ice cores. Driven by this, Will immediately prepares to go to the dungeon. After getting some magic items from his friend Rosti, he sets off. Will heads to the 4th floor and sees several students, including Sion, defeating Frostwalkers. Will finds a girl named Iris being threatened by a giant penguin monster. He quickly saves her, and they decide to explore the dungeon together. The two enter the Frostwalkers' territory and instead encounter a Frost Rex, a powerful monster worth 6 credits. Iris warns Will that physical attacks won't harm the Frost Rex, but Will confidently charges forward towards the Frost Rex. Using a magic item from Rosti, a hook with a long rope, he nimbly dodges its ice attacks, then wraps up the monster's body until it's helplessly bound. Will then activates the mechanism. The rope instantly ignites and burns down its length, triggering a massive explosion that completely destroys the Frost Rex. Mission successful. It turns out Iris is no ordinary student. She is an observer tasked with finding hidden magical talents, and now Will is on her radar. During a magic exam against golems, Will struggles because he's not allowed to use a sword, while 3 elite students, including Julius, are the stars of the show. Seeing that Will is short on credits, Colette suggests he join the Magic Festival, but Will refuses, traumatized from being relentlessly mocked at a past festival. By chance, they also discover a secret underground gambling den where students are betting on the festival's winner. At other times, to make a living, Will works at a tavern owned by dwarves. Rosti comes to help Will because the tavern is short-staffed. Trouble arrives when Julius and his friends visit the tavern. They insult everything, from the place and the food to Will himself. Will's patience runs out. He confronts them and demands an apology. Julius and his friend refuse. Will easily takes down Julius's friends, enraging Julius, who then uses his ice magic to intimidate him. Provoked, Julius challenges Will at the Magic Festival, intending to humiliate him publicly. Will accepts the challenge and sets the stakes. If Will loses, he leaves the academy. If Julius loses, he must kneel and apologize to the dwarves. The Magic Festival finally opens with roaring cheers. To help Will get his credits, Colette manages to recruit Sion for their team. Sion, who didn't know Will was also participating, is furious, but Colette manages to convince him. The first competition is the Crown War, a battle royale where each team must overcome obstacles to reach the crown in the stadium. Underestimated as usual, Will immediately silences everyone at the first obstacle. Colette creates magic gauntlets for him, and with a single punch, Will demolishes the entire golem army, shocking the audience. There we go. Our MC finally put them in their place. At the second obstacle, Will acts again using earth swords created by Colette. Will throws the swords with precision, disabling the long-range shooter golems. The speed of Will's team makes Julius, who is lagging behind, just smirk as if he has a plan. Upon reaching the final obstacle, Will is surprised by a sudden ambush from Julius. But even more shocking, from behind, Sion casts a massive spell intended to trap both Will and Julius at the same time. In the middle of the competition, Sion challenges Will to a duel instead. What is with this guy, causing a fight with his own teammate during a tournament? Will, of course, refuses, but Sion keeps attacking, leaving him no choice but to fight back. The reason for Sion's hatred is revealed. He just wants to be acknowledged. He feels that Will, who is solely focused on his goal of becoming a Magia Evander, has never seen him as a rival. Because of this, Will continues to only dodge and parry Sion's attacks, refusing to fight his own teammate in the middle of a tournament. While they fight, Colette has to face Julius alone and ends up caught in a trap. At the same time, a mystery emerges. Multiple clones of Julius are seen attacking other teams in various locations. A frustrated Sion, feeling ignored, unleashes his ultimate move, a Fire Eagle Guardian. A spell so high level it shocks the entire audience. In the middle of the fight, he screams, revealing all his frustration at Will for always ignoring him. Hearing this, Will finally understands. This isn't hatred, but a form of acknowledgement. Sion already considers him an equal. With newfound resolve, Will decides to fight back seriously. He dodges the Fire Eagle's attack, slashes the Guardian's core, and charges forward. Sion desperately defends himself, but at the last second, Colette intervenes, stopping their fight and telling Will to go on to the stadium. Julius arrives at the destination first, but his victory is momentary. Suddenly, Will lands from above, staring straight at Julius, ready for the final battle. The Crown War reaches its climax. Will now stands alone against Julius and his team. Julius unleashes a thick fog, then attacks Will from all sides with 5 ice clones, a magic created by Alfaria. The clones then transform into an ice prison that traps Will before he's smashed by a giant ice attack. Arrogantly, Julius belittles the magic and declares himself to be Alfaria's true successor. Everyone thinks Will is defeated. However, the block of ice shatters. Will stands, having now completely figured out Julius's trick. With swift movements, he takes down Julius's teammates one by one. Instantly, the ice clones vanish. It turns out Julius was just using his teammates to control the clones. Furious that his plan was exposed, Julius creates 8 new clones to attack Will. But Will just smiles. He says he was often bullied by 10 Alfarias as a child, so these 8 imperfect clones are a trivial matter. He easily slashes through all the clones and defeats the real Julius with a single punch. However, as their personal duel ends, the crown war is already over. It was Wignall and his team who had snuck by and seized the crown while they were busy fighting. From her tower, Alfaria knows the details of the fight as if she were in the stadium live. And as promised, Julius, having lost the bet, now has to work at the Dwarf Tavern as his apology.